Hello guys and welcome to our first episode about the rFactor 2 tutorial series that we're about to do. Today we are going to talk about the general settings on the rFactor 2 simulation with the aim to give you the best user experience when doing racing, whether that is on low fuel motorsport or just any other league itself. Before we get going, if you appreciate those videos, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel and you ring the bell for new notifications as soon as we get up the next episodes of tutorials. And if you have any question whatsoever while we're going through the menu, while we're going through the topics, make sure to put down in the comments area below. Make also sure to maybe put the timestamp so that I know exactly what kind of setting we were talking about, so that I can help you the best. But now, let's head straight into the game of rFactor 2. Right, when you fire up rFactor 2, you are getting into the main menu, which once you get straight to the race, whether that is single player, multiplayer, or into the rFactor 2 competition system, which at the moment is still under construction, but most likely will be a lot more active in the future. However, rFactor 2 is generally web-based, so when you would click down here into the news feeds, you would jump on the rFactor 2 webpage. We're not going to do that right now because we're here for setting up the game. Furthermore, on the second page, you will also come into the esports area or to the Studio 397 forum, get into your own replay fridge, or get the news pages on the Studio 397 webpage in general. For us, more important is to go onto the content and settings tab and click settings. You can also achieve that by clicking the settings gear in the top left, which is, as you can see, available on every page. So here we go. We're clicking onto the gear, and then you'll find 5 different categories. That is gameplay, calibrate controls, assign controls, graphics, and sound. While we use calibrate controls and assign controls in a different video, because it's going to specifically for mapping your controllers, for getting everything set that you need to set in order to be able to race and have no issues during racing. We're gonna compare and work about them in a different video. So today's only about gameplay, graphics, and sounds. Let's start with the gameplay. Generally speaking, every page is set up in 3 or maybe 4 columns, and as you can see on the right, there is always a little bit of a description, which in some cases is more, in other cases is less helpful. Speaking about the difficulty, so there is different set of difficulties. You can be a complete beginner with turning on everything: steering help, opposite lock, braking help, stability control, spin recovery, and so on. In hindsight, if you would put everything on high or on, you could only just go out on track, press the accelerator, and keep the foot down all the time, and the car is most likely going around the track by itself. However, you don't want to have that, of course, when you go into multiplayer sessions, where you don't want to. You would like to have that, but most likely you don't have it because the rules disallow any kind of help. The only help that is usually always on is the auto clutch, and I advise you to put the auto clutch on as well, because that means that the game will always make sure that the engine is not going to die, even if you crash into the wall and or suddenly otherwise come to a halt. Therefore, I advise to put the auto clutch on. It also means that you can easily engage first gear out of the garage without the engine dying. Furthermore, anything else in the multiplayer sessions are turned off anyway. So the more esport you go, the higher the chances are that everything is off. In beginner series or in mid-tier series, it could eventually happen that you are allowed anti-brake and anti-lock brakes and traction control on low. However, for the pure driving experience and for always working on your skill, I advise to have them off as well. At the bottom, you will find general settings for you playing offline. So the damage multiplier to your cars, the AI strength, the AI aggression, so how aggressive these cars are, and the AI limiter. In this case, I do not even know 100% what the setting is doing, but on the right hand side, as I already mentioned, you'll find a little explanation. In that kind, it's setting a higher AI limiter will decrease the performance difference between drivers, leading to a more closely bunched up AI field. So if you are not 100% sure where your actual strength is, you can put that a lot lower, and that will spread the performance on the AI drivers. Coming to the second column, we're talking about settings that are partially also influencing your driving or influencing your game controllers. Once again, auto blip and auto lift, you know that from iRacing. Those are clutch settings. We usually always use auto blip on and auto lift off, so that you are able to change gears, but you may be still better off with doing it manually. Hold brakes and hold clutch are two important things that I really recommend to turn on. Hold brakes means when you click start and you go onto the grid for gridding for a race, the brakes are activated for you until you engage first gear or try to drive off. Same with the auto clutch. As soon as you have auto clutch off, in many cars there is an anti-stall mode, and that anti-stall mode kicks in as long as you have the auto clutch on. And the same goes also for gridding. This will make rFactor 2 hold the clutch until you press any pedal or you press to drive. So same as hold brakes on the grid, it makes sure your engine won't die immediately. Repeat shifts is something that a lot of game controllers need. Remember when your gear is wearing and you're, for whatever reason, having like a little bit misshift, or you have an electric issue on your rim and it might repeat the shifts really quick. So if you're just pulling the shifter and because of the rattling, you know, the force feedback can make the wheel shake, and for whatever reason, in a very short period of time, the upshift clicker or the downshift clicker on your steering wheel is operated twice within a millisecond. That will usually mean that you're double upshifting, double downshifting with a single pull of the shifting paddle, and the repeat shifts will prohibit that. So for a setting between off 100, 150, 200 and 250 milliseconds, a double activation of a shift paddle can be prohibited by the game itself. And that really helps. I have had an issue on a wheel on my end at some point, and 150 milliseconds is a good value to start with if you encounter troubles with your shifters. I also advise to auto engine on, auto windscreen wipers on, auto headlights on, because if it starts raining, the wiper will activate by itself. So even if you don't see the raindrops due to lighting conditions, this will surely help to get you alert that is about to rain or that the rain has started. Also, auto engine on for those guys on ACC. That means you are clicking start into the car and the computer automatically starts the engine for you. Same with the headlights. Since you can get this qualified in dark conditions, auto headlights on means that as soon as the game wants you to use auto headlights, they are turning on automatically. Be advised though, as rFactor 2 doesn't have a button for flashing the headlights, there are third-party plugins that gives you that opportunity. It might give you some issues as the plugin will always be like on, off, on, off, on, off on the setting. But when you cycle through that with a button, it's on, off, auto, on, off, auto, on, off, auto. So you need to be sure about that when using the third-party plugin. On the right hand side, you find network settings and replays. Replays are taking a lot of resources of your PC. So if you are not in desperate use for using the replay, I advise turning them off. If you are going to do video edited videos after races, after practice sessions, or just want to go record some stuff, I advise turning them on just for the cause. On the network settings, to give you the best game opportunity or the game experience, you want to put the connection type to LAN and crank up upstream and downstream. Even in Germany, most of the guys should now have a line that is strong enough for 5 Mbps up and downstream. I would advise to put them that much up so that you don't have any issues with latency, lagging, or whatsoever. On the bottom side of this page, you'll find the plugins that are currently available on your rFactor 2 root. We're going to speak about them also in a different video. About the graphics then. On the left hand side, you're talking about all display settings, then in the middle column about the graphics, and on the right hand side the visuals, so just the HUD. Here you set everything about resolution, refresh rate, vertical sync, and post effects, as much as FSAA, FXAA, and multi-view. Personally, I advise to turn off the post effects for racing and turn off the FSAA, at least to not turn them off, but FSAA to X, so that the lines are not blurry on your screen. About the vertical sync, for no latency whatsoever, you should surely turn this off and adjust the refresh rate and the resolution to whatever your monitor supports. About the window mode, there is discussion about using borderless or full screen. If you have issues with the computer sometimes having a pop-up message or whatsoever, I advise putting it down to full screen. However, if you like to use overlays or something that is shall interfere into your screen, or if you want to be able to drag in some working windows into the game, then I advise having it on borderless. About the graphics, this graphics right now, they are set up for video footage recording and video or a screenshot taking. However, for rFactor 2, and because it's quite enormous on the GPU, on the CPU, you want to turn them down as much as necessary, which means circuit detail, player detail, opponent detail, and texture detail up to full or up to high or even lower depending on your PC. About the texture filters, you should put them trilinear or even bilinear. I'll turn that big up so that I don't forget about that. Special effects off, shadows off, shadow blur off, soft particles off, raindrops off. Just the road reflection, you keep that on low, because when it's raining and when there is a drier line on the racing line, so imagine it's drizzling, it's light rain, and 40 cars going over the track, you might see a little bit of a drier line on the road. And with SSR low reflections, you're more easy to see that. Stabilize horizon and environment reflection always off, especially the stabilize horizon interferes with your cockpit settings, and I advise not having them. Let me quickly turn up the settings back for my video editing in the end. On the visual side, there are information about where the HUD goes and in which position HUD elements are being shown to you. But let's start with the first. Visible vehicles. In a race with 50 people on the track, or in a practice session with 50 people on the track, your PC is rendering every car unless you put less visible vehicles. So the 25th or the 25 cars that are most close to you in the geographical sense that are being displayed, whereas the other vehicles not being shown. I advise turning that down maybe to 20 or even 15 for PCs that have issues with the GPU and the CPU. Note though, if you're starting 20th and you have visible vehicles less than 10, you're only gonna see up to position 11. If P8 and P7 collide and there's going to be a massive crash, you will see very, very late. So for that reason, have it at least at 15, because that should give you at least enough time to react on the starting procedure. Message center on. that will show you viable information about everything. So when you change traction control or brake bias in the car, it will show in the message center. Also, it will enable you to use the chat. Here we're speaking about units, mph, kph, metric, imperial. Set them to your liking. I always run the HUD enabled, so that is whether you have an HUD enabled in general or whether you don't have an HUD enabled in general. And on the HUD selection, you will most likely have the 397 HUD as a default. Via the Steam Workshop, you can upgrade and integrate other HUDs according to your liking. Personally, I like the Studio 397 HUD, and I just use the addition from Yotch. The default driving view should always be in cockpit, mirrors always on, steering wheel. That's totally up to you, whether you are in a setting where you don't want to see the wheel, whether you want to see the wheel. Of course, having the steering wheel on means a little bit more power consumption on your GPU. The vertical field of view shall always be set to your personal field of view. That is recommended by several calculators that you can find out on the web. I have done another video about this, which you are seeing in the top right area now being displayed. Click on it and have a look at it. If you have further questions, again, put them down in the comments area below. Download custom skins. If your components or yourself are running a custom skin on the car, you want to have to turn that on so you not only recognize the other drivers by the name, but also maybe by the livery they are running on their cars. Wait for all plugins to load off. Most of the plugins, they load up immediately anyway. Transparent trainer. This is like a ghost setting that you can set to a saved replay, your best overall time, your previous lap, whatever you want to have it. I personally have it on off because, well, I don't need my ghost driving around. I can see the delta in the top of the HUD to see where my time is better or not better. Lead time. This setting lets you give your trainer car a pre-given lead time when racing against yourself. Also, the transparent trainer are only just available for you in the single player option, of course. That just gives you the information or the setting on whether you want to follow your own trainer in order to get more consistency. You can give it a little bit of a gap ahead so you know exactly what you have done in the best lap and you can follow it. Low speed information screen position, that is the screen position of information on formation lap when the game tells you to do stuff or on a safety car. It will most likely appear in this area with the current setting I have, 14%. TLI screen, TLI screen vertical position, horizontal position changes. Like, it goes hand in hand with this one. So this is, I think, a grayed out box. And this is like where the text appears. Keep them on default. They are right in your face, but not distracting from the actual traffic. So you want to keep them where they are. Speaking about the sound. Sound settings are not too much important anyway. So all the master, onboard spotter volume, the UI, music, clicking volume, you just set them to your personal liking. Same with the legacy settings. Those are settings for cars that are still running on the old sound engine. Most of the DLC cars, if not all DLC cars, meanwhile run on the new engine where every sound ratio is fixed. So you cannot make the tire scrubbing sound going louder than the engine, stuff like that. However, if you're running workshop cars that are still on the old sound engine, those legacy settings might be worth having a look at. On the sound configuration itself, the new sound engine allows up to 256 number of effects. Please note that these effects are really pulling on your CPU and can cause issues. Common sense is that 64 number of effects still give you a pretty good sound experience, gives you all the information that you need to do proper racing, and in the end will be absolutely sufficient. Personally, I always run the spotter off, especially in oval races. It might be interesting to have it on. It could also be the case that it is on there regardless of the setting. I haven't done enough oval racing in the meanwhile, and especially not on the new engine, so I can't really say. But have these spotter details on off will not distract you, because it would call the lap time to you every single time you are going over the line. Same with the, well, here you can actually meanwhile set it, the spotter lap times. We have them off. Most of you guys are maybe used to crew chief, so it doesn't want to interfere with your crew chief, so you want to have them off. Speaker configuration, that is totally down to what you use, whether you're using stereo speakers, whether you're using headphones, whether that is a 7.1 Dolby surround. And on the RTF selection, I always run the default. There are different kind of settings that I do not 100% know what they are doing, but you can find out on clicking them. And on the trackside mode, whether you want to be in a broadcast or immersive, as soon as you go doing some recording, you may want to have it in immersive. That also means you hear the cars going around the track when being stationary in pit road. So guys, that's going to do it for the general settings on rFactor 2. If you have any questions left, put them down in the comment area below. Otherwise, I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial video about the general settings of rFactor 2, and hopefully we can improve the user experience altogether. If you have appreciated this, then please make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and make sure you ring the bell so you receive notifications when we're going on with the next tutorial. Till then guys, have a good time racing on rFactor 2, and see you. Goodbye.